Real quick before we get into today's video, just want to thank the people over on Patreon who have taken the time out to help support the channel, and just got to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your support. Once I start offering memberships and figure out what to offer for memberships on this channel, I'll start adding the names of YouTube members as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the review. Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explained here, bringing you guys a review for Boruto episode 175. And first of all, before we get into the episode review, hands down, you have to applaud the animation team for this episode, because number one, you can tell they put in a lot of work in this episode, and this is enough so to where this is gonna come to a shock to quite a few of you guys, but episode 175 actually saw more original animation cuts than any other episode in this series, including episode number 65. And the reason why that is so important is episode 65 did reuse quite a few animation cuts from the Naruto Boruto the movie. This is all original animation cuts, and they definitely brought in some of their heavy hitters for this episode, and it's very much appreciated, because I strongly feel that this, along with episode 65, are going to be episodes that if you want to try and get somebody to potentially give the Boruto anime another shot to look at, this is going to be one of those episodes that you're going to look at. And I know a lot of people, I've read some of the comments, people saying, why can't we get this animation and fight episodes more consistently? Like episode 65, they brought in a lot of their heavy hitters for this episode, and this has the most cuts out of any episode that we've seen. This was a highlighted fight. This actually gives me a lot of hope for the Naruto versus Delta battles and the battles where we see Jigen in the future, because if they're pulling out stuff like this for an anime original Kara member and Deepa, and they're pulling this out for the battle where you see Orochimaru versus Victor, the fact that they're doing something of this tier, I'm very excited for the battles that we have coming forward in the future. Now, one other thing before we get into the actual review for the episode, I'm gonna do a whole video breaking down the ending sequence of Boruto versus Deepa, because if I do that right now, that's going to add potentially another 8 to 10 minutes onto this video, because there's a few things I think people have overlooked when it comes to Boruto versus Deepa stuff. I am going to briefly touch on it, but I'm going to go in detail later this week on that video. So stay tuned, keep notifications on for the channel, because I guarantee you that's going to be something you're going to want to see, especially if you have somebody calling that an ass pull. So with all that being said, now let's jump back into the review. Hands down, man, this was very good. This was an action-packed episode, and what I like about this is the fact that you see the progression of Deepa through this episode. So last episode, the dude is laughing at the prospect of fighting against Team 7 again, which again, I thought that was absolutely hilarious, that the dude was just looking at him and trolling him and laughing. But in this episode, one of the things that you see is the fact that as he starts battling them, right away when Boruto's using his lightning style shuriken jutsu, Deepa's just knocking away like it ain't nothing. When Sarada's trying to fight against him, he's knocking away her attacks. When you get to moments like that, it definitely shows you he's not taking them seriously, and that goes back to what I said before. This is somebody that his arrogance is going to be his downfall, and they slowly telegraph that in this episode. Now, I want to kind of touch on something that Konohamaru talked about, which is Konohamaru's getting shocked at how powerful Victor was. I thought they did a very good balance of showing Konohamaru's skill level in the fact that he's weaving the hand signs for his Dragon Flame Bomb jutsu, which again, that's going to be one of Konohamaru's most powerful fire style jutsu. But what I like here is that even though he's only got one arm, you see Konohamaru's at least doing what he can, even though his other arm is useless. But one thing that definitely stood out there is the fact that Konohamaru can't weave the hand signs with one hand. He still needs both hands for that. So that goes back to what Kakashi said back in part 1. Ninja that can weave hand signs with one hand are extremely elite. They're the elite of the elite. Naruto, for instance, we know from the Kakashi Hiden novel, Naruto can weave hand signs with one hand as well, just using his fingers. So that right there, that was interesting, and I like the fact that Konohamaru is absolutely shocked at the fact fact that Deepa can use multiple changes in chakra nature, in particular all 5 changes in chakra nature. And like I do on the true power videos where I break down all the shinobi's chakra natures and their jutsu arsenal, the reason why I do so is so you guys can understand that not every ninja can use all 5 chakra natures. Ninja that can use more than 2 are already at that Jonin tier. Jonin are able to use at a minimum of 2 chakra natures. Once you get into 3, 4 chakra natures, that's when you start moving up into a more elite class. That's why Boruto being able to use 3 chakra natures is something that is very impressive. However, all 5 changes in chakra nature, once you can do that, that puts you in a tier with, like Konohamaru said, Heroes in Sarutobi, Tobirama Senju, Hashirama Senju, and most importantly, it puts you in the tier with Orochimaru, it puts you in the tier with Naruto, puts you in the tier with Sasuke. So these ninja that can use all chakra natures, they're rare. They're rare. Now, we've seen more people in the Naruto franchise as the generations have gone on, but for the most part, that's still a very rare feat when you consider the number of ninja that are in the Naruto universe. At that point, it shows that you're skilled. Now it comes down to how much power do you have? Do you have the power to make the usage out of knowing all 5 changes in chakra nature? But Victor being able to do that, that just shows you the experience gap between Konohamaru and Victor, because this is where you start saying a ninja is in that higher Kage tier. So that was interesting because you have Kage that don't even know all 5 changes in chakra nature. So that was good. That was good. Orochimaru just casually messing around with Victor, just playing around with the guy. That just shows you right there that Orochimaru, like I've said before, Orochimaru's grown a lot more powerful since the end of the 4th Great Ninja War. So I like seeing that little tidbit right there. This goes back to something that I talked about in the Orochimaru 2 Power video. Orochimaru has access to that high speed regeneration that you get when you have the Hashirama cell. He was already able to regenerate to a certain extent, but Orochimaru's regeneration has gone up to an entirely different level now because he has the Hashirama cells, because he has absorbed White Zetsu from the 4th Great Ninja War. So that was good. That was good right there that they threw that little tidbit in there. And I like the fact that after, you know, Victor gets his head bit off, Orochimaru just casually flexes on the guy and says like, yo, I see what you're doing, man, but your regeneration, that's just a copy. You ain't on that level right there. And Orochimaru, without even saying anything, uses wind release and is cutting Victor up, and you can tell that Orochimaru is just playing around with the dude. I like that because it goes back to what I said. Orochimaru is on a different tier, and so when you start seeing something like this, this is putting more respect on Orochimaru's name. Like I've said in the past, he's more powerful than he was in the 4th Great Ninja War, and the fact that he's doing that well against Victor to where he's not even fighting at 100% power and he's bodying the guy, an inner member of Kara, that is good. That is very good right there. So we at least, again, like I said, Orochimaru's a good starting point, because now you start seeing where some of the inners are. And I definitely think that this cements what I've said before, the fact that Victor is more powerful than Deepa. When you add in his changes in chakra nature, when you add in his regeneration ability, and then you look at the fact that Deepa's still dealing with the Ganin. At no point did anybody think that the Jonin need to be the one that handles him. So I think that that's cool right there. I think they're doing a good job of establishing the chain. Again, I think that once we get the vessel meeting and they start talking about the vessel going missing, I think that we're going to get a situation where they reveal that Deepa is the weakest member. When it comes to actual battle with Team 7 versus Deepa, you get a really beast shot of where Sarada's throwing the exploding kunai and she's using her Sharingan to try and dodge the attacks, and you get this really awesome moment to where Deepa's getting ready to shoot Boruto at point blank range, and then that's when Mitsuki shows up. And according to Orochimaru, this is very important because there was a surprise donor who came in at the last minute. I'm going to be very interested to see who exactly that is, because there's not that many people who should be compatible with Mitsuki's body. But what I will say is that the Deepa versus Team 7 battle, when they're all assembled, very good, very good cuts, because you see them relying on their speed and they're trying to get an opening because they're trying to buy time in order to allow Boruto to use his brand new Rasengan. And what I like in this moment right here is that Deepa is just continuously just trolling Team 7 and fighting back. And I like how you get this really good shot to where he starts to get a little more serious, where he breaks Sarada's kunai, shatters it actually, and then his actual fingers are transformed into carbon, and it looks like he's using a variation of the body modification jutsu that Orochimaru and Mitsuki use. And you start seeing him kind of whip his fingers around, and they're acting like these long tentacles. They're slapping everybody around, and I like how he knocks Boruto cleanly through a huge chunk of debris. And you get this moment to where Sarada starts to doubt herself, and Deepa, this is when Deepa starts lowering his guard, because he says, I see the hopelessness starting to set in, and he's beginning to try and attack Boruto. And I thought that this was a very good moment, because you see Boruto's limitations as being a 1/3 Uzumaki, but the other thing is that you see Sarada, she shows up. Sarada is able to take the brunt of Deepa's attack, and this is when you see that Sarada's 2 Tomoe Sharingan has progressed because of her deep desire to protect Boruto. I thought that that was good. I thought that that was a very, very good moment right there. This is good. And so now we're seeing that moment to where Sarada's beginning her progression towards a 3 Tomoe Sharingan. This is good. This is a very good scene right here. And I like how, you know, Deepa starts to get irritated once that happens. Now, when it comes to Team 7 and how well they do against Deepa, I think that one thing that is kind of important here is the fact that Deepa's fighting style, they're still somewhat familiar with it, but I like the fact that Deepa is throwing wrenches in there, and you get a few moments in this episode to where he's just toying around with them, and you see the huge skill gap in them. However, one thing that you definitely see is the fact that just when he starts to get the upper hand, he starts lowering his guard yet again. A perfect example is when he's just dogging Mitsuki out. So I thought that they did a good job of just slowly setting up the fact that his eventual downfall is gonna come, and he was arrogant enough to use a variation of his jutsu that he says himself is not complete. And if you go back to the Naruto manga, that's one thing they say: you do not use an incomplete jutsu in battle because you open yourself up for defeat. So I thought that that was cool. I also thought it was cool how Mia is the one who confronts Victor when Orochimaru and Konohamaru were fighting against him, and you get this moment where Victor says that human beings, when it comes to human superiority, you're gonna have people who are gonna be sacrificed. They're gonna be weak who are gonna be sacrificed for the nourishment of the strong. So you're seeing some of Victor's ideology. However, at the same time, you're realizing, and it goes back to what a few of us have said, Victor is playing around with a level of science he has no idea about. And you see it in this episode where Orochimaru watches as Victor seemingly gets swallowed up by the divine tree. So I thought that that was a nice little moment right there. It's gonna be very interesting to see how they kind of progress that. I don't want to spoil for anime only fans, but this is an important scene. Just keep your eyes on this. And I also like that when you see Orochimaru is using shadow clones and he is destroying the divine tree. Again, that shows you, even though this is an artificial divine tree, that shows you that Orochimaru has become more powerful, because that's not something you would have saw him do during the 4th Great Ninja War. Now, I also like, again, when it comes to actual cuts, you can tell they put a lot of emphasis on the Deepa versus Team 7 portion of the battle. One of my favorite shots is when Mitsuki goes from using the lightning style lightning snakes jutsu to the wind scythe jutsu to Deepa taking his hand after he penetrates Mitsuki, and he takes his hand and he just grabs Mitsuki by the face, slams him into the ground, picks him back up, and then kicks him cleanly across the room. I thought that that was beautiful, man. And what I like here also is that you see Sarada, when she tries to jump in, Sarada is mimicking Sakura's movements, trying to recreate her chakra control, which that was something that even Sakura was impressed by, Sakura and Sasuke. And you get the very first hints that Sakura's training and Sasuke's training with Sarada is actually paying off, because for a moment, part of Deepa's carbon is cracking. And that shows you that it goes back to what I said. Chakra control and condensed chakra is going to be the thing that actually brings this dude down. And you see it in this episode right here, to where when Boruto does get the opportunity to land his high compression Rasengan, you start seeing that part of Deepa's armor is beginning to crack. And the reason why this works is, like I talked about when Boruto first used his compression Rasengan and we saw it in action, I said, hey, this is probably going to bring Deepa down, because Rasengan is already taking high volume of chakra, compressing it, and then making it rotate, adding to the destructive force. So then when you take that Rasengan and then you add it into an even smaller point, and when you do something like that, when you have that much pressure and that much volume and you're putting into a tiny point like this, you're increasing the density, because the molecules are getting denser and dense, and by adding in that much density, you're increasing the destructive capability. And I thought that this was good. This is the exact opposite of something that Minato, Jiraiya, and Naruto would have done, because they have such massive chakra reserves. And so I thought that this was a very good usage with the character of Boruto. Again, I'm gonna make a whole video breaking this down, because there's a lot of symbolism and there's a little bit of science that goes into the actual defeat of Deepa. So I thought that that was good. I thought that was good, and I like how you get this moment where after Orochimaru begins destroying the divine tree, you get it where Deepa absolutely loses it. He's already on edge, and he's already arrogant enough to where he's using an incomplete jutsu in the battle against Team 7. But once you see the members of Team 7 begin to lend Boruto the chakra, this goes back to the theme in Naruto, which is you can't do everything by yourself. So I thought this was a good moment right here, where they all start lending their chakra together, and in particular, Mitsuki is using his Sage Mode chakra. And I like that you're seeing this moment right here, to where they're all giving Boruto that amp, and that Sage Mode chakra in particular, funneling it through Boruto, that right there is the thing that definitely pushed him over the edge. But if you go back for a second, when Deepa begins to use that armor, just when he begins to focus his body, you already see the armor cracking at that point. Again, that's why I said it's very important that you do not use an incomplete jutsu in battle for reasons like this. That's something that Deepa overlooked. That's what I mean, that arrogance came out because he's fighting against Ganin. So I thought that was cool, man. I thought that was cool. Overall, this was a very, very fun episode to watch, man. Again, they pulled out a level of animation, and they brought in enough of their big dogs to where they did more work on this episode than they did on episode 65. So this was a treat for Boruto fans, and given the fact that we're moving into the Vessel / the Owl arc next month, and the transition episodes that are coming next week and the week after next are actually episodes that are directly dealing with manga content. The current director for the Boruto anime, who's taken over since, if I'm not mistaken, the time slip arc, the time travel arc, if you will, he said that we're going to be getting directly into the manga content, and that he's a fan and he's going to bring us the moments that we've been waiting for. So far, I feel like he's definitely delivered. I'm probably going to do a retrospective review on the car actuation arc later on this year, so be on the lookout for that. But my episode question to you guys is, what are you guys' thoughts about the progression of Team 7? Are you okay with it? Do you like it? And in particular, what are your thoughts about Deepa as a villain? Do you think that Deepa had enough to him to where he's a memorable character, or do you think that they overplayed his arrogance too much? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.